Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Roka, and today we are back with the solo steel path Warframe journey. We're having a spectacular day. I know I'm having a really good one. If you don't know what's happening, I suggest you go watch the first 2 episodes in this series. Otherwise, if you don't know what's happening in Warframe, I suggest you go play the game on your own. It's an MMO. It's Space Ninjas. Ninjas play free, free MMO. And all that being said, this video is going to be containing some spoilers. So yeah, just make sure if you're keen to actually listening to the story and and experiencing for yourself, there's going to be some light stuff that you might not know about when you're first starting off. But nothing too crazy. So sit back, relax, enjoy. We're going to be starting off here on M Prime, first node in Mercury after the junctions. A classic extermination, but this is actually one of the first instances of a crossfire mission in the star chart. So if you go in order, which would be Earth to Venus to Mercury, then back up to Mars and all the way out through the rest of the chart, this would be the first crossfire. And that has some interesting implications because almost half of this planet is filled with crossfire missions. So we have to be very careful with the loadout that we're picking for today's sort of set of nodes. Now, I mentioned the loadout. If you want to see the loadout, make sure you stick around towards the end of the video because I will be going over it and sort of the thoughts, my own thoughts behind that later. And I'll just be touching on things that I think are important throughout the video. So if that's something that interests you, by all means, stick around. Anyways, Crossfire Exterminate. Definitely very interesting because to be honest, I didn't really realize that this was going to be Crossfire. I didn't look thoroughly enough at the nodes. I just kind of checked the mission types and not what was going to be present. But yeah, we've got Infested and Grenier. So right now we're running the Sobek, Kuva Sobek to be precise. It's got toxin damage on it and sort of spec'd out for corrosive damage. We've also got the Latum from, I think it would be Earth we use the Latum, and a new weapon in my arsenal. We actually have Okina Prime for the melee today. And this is a nice setup. I'm glad I chose this setup because there were quite a few more infested related missions than I realized. Sort of, the Mercury star chart splits into 2 sections. You've got the crossfires and the just straight up infestation nodes that exist on the right side, and then you go to the left side towards the assassination, and it's mostly just Grenier. So we really need to have weapons and an arsenal that is capable of handling both, which is kind of a hard task. You need a weapon that's capable of killing both weapons, and then probably something that's sort of in between, and that's kind of what we got. I say this is hard. It's not really. I mean, we're kind of just one-tapping everything, especially with the build that we have on our Kome, which is our frame of choice today. But it is definitely interesting because in the last couple planets, there are 2 dark sector nodes which are fully infested, and beyond that, there's nothing else. So it's the most infested nodes we've seen so far in any of these videos, any of these planets, which means I actually do need to prepare for infested just a little bit more. Obviously, I don't have a full infested loadout. The Latum and the Sobek are both impact damage and sort of spec'd for more elemental damage that will work against the Grenier. But the Okina is basically just a hard take for the infested here. So you can see this is a pretty good example. There are infested on my screen, and I'm just going to be spamming E for a while. This is also going to be the first instance of a Juggernaut in this series, which, I mean, you're going to see this play out. It's rough. It's rough. Compared to everything else, the Juggernaut has an obscene amount of health. And there's not much I can really do about it. It's kind of just going to juggle me, and I'm just going to have to sit here and click on it for a while because it just takes massively reduced damage. Yeah, I mean, that's the build. That's where we're at, and that's sort of my thoughts going into this. To be completely honest, I did not realize there were so many infested nodes, and the build just so happened to work out. I kind of just thought Mercury was another Grenier planet, but in fact, it's sort of the crossfire between infested and Greniers. Where'd it go? Speaking of Mercury, let's talk about Mercury on the whole here. I'm a little sad because I never really go to Mercury anymore. There's really no reason for anybody to go to Mercury beyond doing the first couple of missions. And in fact, when I was queuing up for this mission and just this mission, I completely forgot to even put my I can't talk right now, guys. I just woke up. I recorded this video, I fell asleep, and then I woke up to do the commentary. I set my party's availability to public for this mission that you're watching right now, and so you can see there's nobody else in my lobby, and that's because nobody really goes to Mercury. Kind of an error on DE's end, that they just really haven't added a reason to go back. I think they did a really good job with the Dark Sector missions on most planets give you a reason to go there. Like, if you need the resources from said planet, you know, you're at least getting some benefit from having cleared the star chart. You see the Dark Sector nodes. They're going to give you extra affinity and some extra drop chances, which helps with the farm. Mercury doesn't have that. It's just raw nodes, and then you have the Assassination, which is probably the only thing that you would ever do here on Mercury. That's kind of what you come here to do. I believe it's a story mission to actually show up at Mercury and kill Captain Vor, and then you go the other direction. I mean, obviously, if you don't clear out the nodes, then you have to come back and do it later for Steel Path. But assuming you do everything sort of in order and kind of like how I'm doing it now, which I don't think is how most people play the game. They kind of do the nodes that they need to do and then go back and clear for Steel Path. But yeah, Mercury, kind of a useless map. I wish we would see some kind of free roam or a new special node. They keep adding nodes to other planets, and for some reason it seems like they're keeping Mercury as sort of this new plan, where the only reason you're going to be in Mercury is if you're MR2, MR3, and have to get through that part of the star chart to actually progress, because I think Mercury is a requirement to actually go to Mars. Like, the game forces you to come here at least once and then never again. There's hardly any fissures on this map. Like, I get excited whenever I see void fissures on Mercury, because that's the only reason I get to come back, and I don't. Those are rare. Like, mostly they're on different places because there's just so much other map. There's so much else to the star chart that it doesn't. There's no reason. Anyways, Mercury, yeah, we finally killed the Juggernaut, our first Juggernaut in this experience, and it's telling me that I need to never spawn one of those in again. So in normal missions, when you're kind of just like, oh, a Juggernaut spawning, oh no, let me keep slashing, keep hacking and slashing so I can get all the loots from the Juggernaut. Here, I don't want to do that. It's way too tanky. It just takes way too much time. This mission is going to end up taking far longer as a result, because I spent half the mission just smacking this Juggernaut. Not even to say my damage is bad. It just has that much damage reduction in Steel Path. Like, the armor on that thing is absolutely nuts. So yeah, we're gonna finish out this exterminate and get on our way. And in fact, because of the way this mission was laid out, I'm gonna clear these enemies out, and there's not even gonna be enough for me to finish the exterminate, because this is the end of the mission. This is the no, sorry, not this tile, but one coming up very soon. It's gonna be the last tile, I'm going to be done walking out to the extraction, and it's going to be wanting me to kill a few more enemies. Something about this crossfire, I think, increases the total number of enemies you have to kill for the objective, which I'm down for. I like when the execution number is a little bit higher, because I did skip a few enemies there, and that's probably the reason why. Just wasn't thorough enough, which I'm usually really thorough with these, but I don't know. I guess I was just bored because of the fucking Juggernaut. I was like, get me out. Anyways, yeah, Mercury, a sort of one and done kind of planet, and that might be what's going to happen here in Steel Path. I mean, I'm going to do these missions for Steel Path, and I'm probably going to walk away. So, DE, if you're watching this, add another reason for players to come back. My suggestion is either an open world, and if you don't want to do an open world, add another event. I mean, you just added Saya's Visions to Earth, and I don't know if we need another reason to come to Earth. We've already got the open world. We've got every single mission that's on Earth. We've got the dark sectors. We've got the new thing, Saya's Visions. We get frequent and often lith fissures because it's just so low level, and it's also the first planet players ever start on. It's not even the third in the list, it's literally the first, so that is a reason to come back. Mercury just didn't have that, so I would highly suggest just add a node smack dab in the middle, make it some higher level thing. It doesn't have to be, you know, end game. It can probably, my suggestion would be mid game. Give the like MR10 players a reason to come back here, because those are the players who are going to be focusing on working through the end of the star chart. You know, the players on Sedna, Eris, Pluto, all that stuff, which we will get to in due time. Don't you worry. We're going to extract so we can move on with our lives. This was one mission.
The longest extermination ever.
This was a singular mission. Exterminates usually don't take 10 minutes. But this one did, and we didn't really even get anything from it. Some steel essence, nothing crazy. I mean, it's the same stuff we would have gotten from another mission. It just took forever because of the Juggernaut. So, I want to say you're not going to see another Juggernaut for the rest of this video, because that took way too fucking long, man. Anyways, I digress. On to the next node, and it's going to be just a regular mobile defense. This is just going to straight up be infested. So those other two nodes are
I was doing
crossfire missions, I think, on the right, and then up top is another infested mission. Kind of just weird. No other planet is so heavily mixed like that. I'm trying to think
let's go,
if there actually is one, and I'm just forgetting. I know there for a fact that there are more crossfire missions, even just between Negrinir and Corpus. I mean, it's been a while since I've done every single node, but that's where we're at. That's what we're doing it, and I don't think any planet does sort of two different types of nodes and crossfires. I mean, crossfires, yes. Double nodes, I mean, maybe, I think it's Neptune or Uranus that does that for sure. They for sure have Grineer and Corpus. It's the sea lab, so that would be Uranus. Nice and deep underneath Uranus there are Grineer sea labs, but I'm pretty sure in the sky there are Corpus ships. So this is going to be the first mission where I really get to showcase Kome's abilities, and I was talking about Saya's Visions earlier when discussing the lack of nodes on this planet, but with the addition of Saya's Visions that came out no less than a week ago, I've got Kome. Kome is one hell of a frame, let me tell you. I don't know, there's a lot to unpack here. The first thing I'm going to unpack is the fact that I've actually got a helmet ability on, and this might be surprising to some, but I went ahead and placed my Tomokuji because I don't like the degrees. Hot take, I think it's probably the worst part of her kit, and it's only for one reason, is that most missions don't just go infinitely like Duviri does. Nobody most times, unless you're genuinely trying to just go for as long as you can, you're just not going to get enough value out of the challenges for it to be worth it, because half of the time the decree that you get is just going to not work with what you've got going on. Like, you need a very adaptable build if you're going to run Kome, because the decrees that you get can wildly vary, and that is the basis of her kit. For those who don't know, Kome is the gambling frame.
Let's go gambling! Aw, dang it.
And with the gambling frame, we get to roll dice and complete challenges for random decrees. Stock, that's what we get to do. We also deal random status effects, so it makes for a very interesting frame. Don't get me wrong. I actually think Kome is one of the stronger frames in the game. Just that particular ability, I think, is very niche. It's by far the most niche utility, and so I've gone ahead and replaced it with Roar, because I just like the damage. I just like that extra damage. She is kind of a mix between tanking and status application. It's weird, because I've never seen a frame in this game tank so much damage and deal so much damage. I mean, I guess her actual damage output, like numbers, is not very high, but we're gonna get into this later with the build. But yeah, the fact that we can apply random status effects is actually massive. Okay, and specifically, it's going to be huge for my melee through the use of a mod called Condition Overload. Most of you probably do know what Condition Overload is, because it's just that strong. But both of my primary and secondary weapons are also going to benefit from that, due to the, I think it's the diffusion mods and the galvanized shot mods. This is the galvanized mods that give damage per status type on the target, but they have a cap, so that's why I say primarily it's going to be for the melee, because Condition Overload does not have a cap. And if you have every single status type on a target, it's just going to be dealing 80% more damage for every status type that you have on it. Very strong. The scaling is a little bit less for the other weapons, and I don't even think, actually, now I'm thinking about it, shotgun doesn't have that at all. It's a completely different mod, but for rifles that would work. But you'll see, I'm not really using the shotgun right now, so I will be using it later. It's going to carry me through the Grenier section. So will the Latum. Grenier and yeah. What am I saying? That's exactly what I meant to say. We've got this mobile defense, and also we're going to be dealing with some of these stalker copies, and the Latum is just so good for this task. I really gotta stop using the Latum so much, because I'm going to need it a lot later. There are just a ton of Grenier planets, and it's enough where I actually do have to get a different weapon at some point to deal with that. I like to make sure that my physical damage typing is matching, just to deal the most amount of base damage possible. And then from there, elemental is elemental. It is what it is. There are resistances, and there are just other elements. The status typing in this game is very strange, and I'm trying to sort of give enough context for my own knowledge on these things to explain the reasoning behind Kome. And it's interesting, because it's a new frame. Everybody's sort of got their own opinions about it. I've heard people say that the decree stuff is the most overpowered stuff that they've ever seen. I mean, if you ever played the circuit, which I definitely have played the circuit. I've got the Okina Incarnon happening. They're also a new addition to the game, and so we're sort of just testing things out here while it's still weak. And spoiler alert, I'm a little disappointed, but that's probably just due to my own inability to build the damn thing. I don't have that much formula on it, and I don't have the greatest mods right now. there are still better mods, like primed mods, that I just don't have yet. And it's going to take time because we need to wait for Barrow to show up in a week or something. By the way, Barrow showing up in a week. And I get a feeling it's Halloween. I think this is the last one. This is going to be the last Barrow until Halloween. There's going to be some banger stuff in there. So you might want to start opening some relics in the near future. Now I'm thinking about it. I really should just do a relic opening stream. We're going to be doing a stream recently. Soon. I might actually do that after this video and just stream some Warframe, dude. Fuck it. There you go. Stream announcement. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Anyways, yes. Kome, dude. You can see it on your screen. This is the power of Kome. So if I press 1 enough times, I'm going to get every single status type getting applied to these enemies without any random chancing. All right. Once we roll 666s, you're going to apply every single status type, and that has got some very strong implications and is sort of the foundation of this frame, is just being able to do that. Without getting into the other abilities, you roll 3 6s, you get every status type. That's really strong because if you do that, if you do that, the melee that you have equipped is going to get much more powerful, not to mention all of the debuffs that actually get applied to something with that many status effects on it. It's interesting to just dissect, I think, the fact that there are a couple different things to think about when you're working with status effects. On the one hand, there are just raw damage values. When you add status typing to a weapon, it either matches something that already exists on the weapon and boosts it, or it doesn't and it's pulling from a percentage of the other damage types that you have on the weapon by default, the base damage. And status typing is all about base damage. So you're either adding a new base damage to your weapon, or you're increasing one that's already there. Obviously, increasing something that's already going to be there is sort of just in line with the weapon itself. I think that's the key to making good builds that actually deal quite a bit of damage, is you need to work with what's there. And so in the case of the Sobek, it's a Kuva Sobek, so it has impact damage base, and then the Kuva variant of it, I gave it toxic damage. If you don't know how Kuva weapons work, maybe I'll do a video on that some other time. I just recommend, look into Kuva weapons if that's something you don't know about. Then you're gonna want to know about it, because they're really strong, and they carry to the end game, as far as I'm aware. Maybe not the best weapons in the game, but they're literally just upgraded versions. Anyways, I digress. It has toxin damage on it, so when I'm modding it, what I'm doing is I'm putting a toxin type of damage. Now, because we can mix toxin into corrosive, that just becomes part of the base damage when I'm converting it to corrosive, which does play a factor into how strong that corrosive damage is going to be. And we just get a little bit of extra bonus damage on that regard, which might actually not be the correct play, but when we're dealing with Rainier, it matters. And that leads into the second part, the second layer of status typing is now, outside of just raw base damage values, you have to worry about the faction that you're going against. Faction strengths and resistances matter. They matter quite a bit, because you're going to either be gaining you're either going to get 1.5 times damage, or you're going to get 0.5 times damage, which matters more than people might think. And there are probably a lot of videos explaining this far better than I can. I'm still just speaking mostly from a perspective of self-learnedness and what I experience, but also what I've picked up from other videos. So I definitely do know that the faction damage bonus is incredibly important when going for the highest values that you possibly can get. And in this case, it's going to be for Grenier and Infested. And it's why? The Okina is not going to be the strongest thing here, but it's important that I have because it actually will deal with the Infested very nicely. For example, the slash damage. It does 1.5 times damage to the Infested, but I'm very positive that that's a little misleading because of the way the math works. And this is where I'm going to stop myself from speaking out of my ass because I don't know the exact equations of it, but I do know for a fact that it's a little deceiving, and you should actually be getting more damage from that buff, especially if you're using the mods that increase that faction bonus directly. I think it has something to do with the fact that it's applying that damage multiplier to base damage on the weapon, which has pretty important connotations when it comes to crit and extra status damage. Because, yeah, it just does. Base damage is incredibly important in this game. The more I play this game, the more I just crave those base stats, baby. Dude, I need them so much, man. They're fucking so good, man. I need that base damage, dude. I can't find it, and it's really the only thing holding my melee builds back. I found the base damage when it came to the Latum, and it's because of the Latum that's in my hands that I really sort of begin to understand base damage and how important that actually is. But I'm getting a little off track. The last... Wow, I can't believe I'm actually keeping up with my own commentary. Holy shit, this is like a first for me. As you can tell, I'm kind of ADHD, and I kind of just like to go on tangents. I mean, this is going to be a long video anyway. So I need to come up with stuff to talk about. Anyways, the third layer when it comes to status typing, this is all about Kome, is the fact that there are just debuffs on status damage, which is just important.
Why am I just
the biggest one I can think of right now is, well, let's just talk about one that's in my inventory. The Latum.
Jesus.
We use the Latum. It deals radiation damage. That doesn't have a resistance. That doesn't have a strength against anything that I'm going against. I believe it is plus on the Murmur and down on the Orican. So there might be actually one more it's plus against, but I can't remember what it is. Anyways, those are the strengths and the weaknesses, and Grenier and Infested don't really fall into that. However, it makes enemies confused, which is just very, very important when it comes to, you know, crowd control and dealing with the enemies. In the sense that when they're shooting each other because they're confused as hell and they don't know who the enemy is anymore, they're not shooting at me. And we might be Kome the fucking tank DPS, but I would prefer not to get shot if possible, because that's good. That's good for my HP. I like not dying. That's a good thing to happen in this game. Yeah. So the debuffs from status typing is also very important, and those three combined make Kome one of the strongest frames in this game, in my opinion. If what you're worried about is, you know, applying a certain status effect, then the Kome's got you covered. I mean, we can get every single status going. And it's strong, too. It's not even like these weak procs. Personally, I think, to make it a little bit more balanced, Kome should probably be doing less damage. I mean, I've got only positive stats. I have not actually taken anything down on her. But she does a lot of damage. This is Steel Path, so nothing is actually dying because of it. But when you're not in Steel Path, the one actually kills things. It's kind of scary. I tested it on these poor level 10s, man. These poor level 10s, you press 1, they die. It's oh my god, like it's so satisfying just having them walk into the tripwires and just get like evaporating, like they die in one hit. It's crazy. Obviously that it's not happening here, but the damage does add up. The damage definitely does add up. The problem with what we're experiencing right now is there is a lot of armor happening right now just because of Grenier and Steel Path Grenier scaling and level. That damage reduction adds up, and it's something that I am thinking about a lot when preparing for the next planets. Obviously, I have this build now because it's whatever. It's kind of a throwaway planet. It's basically the lowest levels Grenier we can get, albeit they are higher level. I will give them that. They're 105s right now. Let me see if I can get a visual on that. No, can't see it. It's too small on my screen. This happens when I'm recording in post. You're just gonna have to see the enemy levels for yourself. Anyways, they are slightly above the level of Earth. Earth is 101. This is 105. Their Grenier armor is slightly scaling, and I think that's mostly what scaling is going to happen with the enemies going forward. I believe it's going to be enemy armor values. I mean, a little bit of health. Like, don't get me wrong. They're going to be adding health throughout this. Level 160 kind of scares me, which is why we're taking our time going through this and making sure I'm scaling properly. I don't need to one-shot everything. I just need to be able to kill it all efficiently enough to actually beat the missions, and that is a very, very important factor for me moving forward, because you'll see this during this video that I'm going to feather that line, the actual being able to complete the mission aspect of that. This is important. We'll get into it later. Was that one big fucking ADHD moment? I think it was. Kome. We're still talking about Kome. Yeah, having all those status types, it makes the one very strong. We are going to be applying those, and we're going to be extra damage. That was just me explaining it for those who saw my spoiler warning and just didn't care, but still don't know anything about the game. Yeah, that's what's going on. Kome, new frame. My thoughts. Very strong. Very, very strong. I'm going to skip over the 2. Kind of already talked about it. It's the one that gives you decrees, but it doesn't really affect us here. Something that's sort of just going to be passively happening in the background of this entire video, more of a passive ability, is her 3. And it's sort of what turns her into a tank DPS. The tank part is really where this comes in, and I can't remember what the ability is actually called, but it's the talisman. It's the floating things that go around her, and they have chance to heal her on hit. So when we're getting damaged, it has the chance to reflect all of the damage. Well, not reflect, but sort of negate all of the damage and turn it into healing. It's a very nice, very strong ability. In fact, I'm actually very surprised for how much damage reduction this ends up being. And for context, Kome also has incredibly high base armor. She has like 444 base armor. It's insane. Like, that's rivaling a Rhino. That's a lot of fucking armor, and I think with the mods that I have on, it goes above 1,000. I think it's 1,200 or something, just off memory. And that's like 80% damage reduction. So all the damage we're taking reduced by 80%. And then we have these little talisman, and they're fun. On hit, we have a 50% chance to activate one of them and not take any damage and instead get healed. And that makes for some very interesting mathematics, in my opinion.
My mouse has been doing
where
a little bit too much recently.
We've got this ability. It doesn't always proc, but over time it's sort of guaranteed to proc. If we're taking enough hits, then some of them are going to disappear and count for healing. And I think that's based off of the damage we were intended to take, not the actual values that we would have taken, which is very important when it comes to armor, because if I'm negating these hits down to, 20 health, 10 health, that's not very much healing. But instead, what it's doing is going to be healing hundreds of HP per hit, because, it's a steel path. We're going to be taking that much damage in a single hit. I mean, I've seen values of up to 800. If you pay attention to sort of the zone where the talisman reside, which moves around on the screen as Kome is sort of
Take it back.
jumping around or sliding or whatever, sort of that zone around the frame, you'll see a plus number. It's green, it has the talisman symbol on it, and then that's the healing from when we actually get hit. That number will reach up into the 800s throughout this video. Steel path is no joke, and that's my entire health bar, just as base damage. And we do have a shield, that's important to note, but a lot of these hits would be killing me without armor, and just having that 80% reduction. I mean, do the math. 80% reduction is, that's like 100, more than 700 damage off. So taking only 100 damage a hit it seems like a lot, but also that's not going to be every single hit. A lot of them are going to be weaker sort of status procs, things that are unavoidable, like Grenier Gunfire. It doesn't do the most damage. The problem with Grenier Gunfire is that there's a lot of it, and there's really no iframes in this game. Shield gating is a thing. When our shields break, we get invulnerability, but
Welcome to the party.
the way we've built it, I don't actually have that much invulnerability. I've sort of opted for this max HP build because of the damage reduction, and the talisman make it so that 50% of the time we're going to be healing back the full damage value and not even taking that much damage. So our health ends up being incredibly stable as long as we have the talisman active. Now, I'm not even going to talk about the the invulnerability aspect of it, because that's pretty self-explanatory. We roll 666s, we're invulnerable. We don't even take damage at that point, and I think it does consume those talisman faster. I don't know if it has the chance to take the chance to heal anymore, like chance to activate. It just works. I think it removes that entirely, and we're just invulnerable as long as we have them up, which is insane. I don't I don't know what crack we were smoking, but that's really fucking strong. Now, albeit it's incredibly inconsistent, you actually do have to get pretty lucky for that, because you can't recast these. That's the main defining factor, is once you cast them, they're kind of just there, and the number you roll doesn't affect the strength of them. It only affects the number of them that you get. So the number you roll either gives you invulnerability because you just have so many, or it gives you healing for a specific duration. The lowest I think you could roll is 5 ones, and then you would have 5 talisman. And even then, you could just recast it. So the recast limit is 5. If you're watching it, what you can do is never let it go dry, and if it's strong enough to keep you alive as long as it's there, technically I don't think you could ever die, because the only way this fails is if you're getting attacked enough times where it actually burns through all of them, and that's a lot to burn through. That is quite a bit to actually have to use before you're actually taking damage again. In any case, a very strong ability. We're moving on to the second section of Mercury, and things are going pretty good for us. I mean, I haven't really been talking about the missions. They're sort of just throwaway missions, in complete honesty. The hardest thing with that defense there is just making sure we can cover both sides. But our fourth ability actually makes that mission pretty easy. We just pick everything up and say goodbye, because it's just sitting there and taking a bunch of status damage. So moving on to the Grenier side of things. I don't think we're going to be seeing any more infested, so The Sobek should be making more of an appearance right now. And the Sobek is doing good work. I was generally very surprised that it was actually still kind of one-shotting things. One-shotting, if not two-shotting. I mean, the main thing here is that I don't think it can kill things unless I headshot them and hit every pellet and be close enough. Those three things make the Sobek sort of do what the Sobek does and just survive. But we needed that corrosive damage on top to really strip their armor, and if they're actually not dying, then okay, we need to get rid of that damage reduction and start dealing real damage to actually kill them. If we just one-shot them, it doesn't really matter. So what's nice about Kome, though, is that we do get that random status effects passive, which just cycles status effects on our weapons every 60 seconds. Kind of, it is a passive. Like, I'm not thinking about it half the time, but when it procs, it procs. Like, it's gonna pop off and really help out in the status department. But sometimes when I need just more damage, I think it's just the Latum. The Latum is very strong for certain things and very weak for other things. And we do have a lot more consistency with the Sobek, in my opinion. Simply due to the fact that... Oh, by the way, there's a Kuva on the screen. I forgot this was happening. Yeah, we get the Kuvazar, so you get to witness me actually getting a Kuva weapon. Talking about the Sobek, this is it. This is the video where you learn how to get a Kuva weapon. Basically, all you need is the level 30 enemies and to kill them fast enough. If you see this green flicker effect that comes sometimes when a stalker is chasing you, then you know you're on the right path. So just keep slaying, and one of those Kuva things will spawn in, and if you mercy kill it, will spawn a Kuva Lich, which you're gonna see in a second when this mission finishes anyway. But I'm actually very happy with this Kuva weapon. I didn't really want that, but it showed up and it was not bad either. We get to find out what what element Kome actually produces, which is interesting. I'm not going to spoil that. I know what it is because I've already gone through and done this, but yeah, you get to find out. Every Warframe, when you kill one of those things, gives you a different effect. Some of them have the same effects, but you will get varying results when playing different frames.
Stop knocking me over. I don't have sure footage.
I'm all over the place, man. This exterminate, it's going off. It's weird because the Sobek looks like it performs sometimes, and then other times it just drops the ball. I think it does have a lot to do with crit in this sense, and that's sort of a failure on my end, actually. And we'll talk about this more at the end of the video, because my build here is just suboptimal, and my clear speed is suffering because of it. I made some questionable decisions when deciding what my final build was going to be for this. Thankfully, I have the Latum, and actually the Okina, very surprising as well. Like they were doing excellent. Sort of the thing with melee is that you're gonna need multiple hits regardless, just so you can get condition overload going. Now Kome kind of just ignores that, but yeah, the Okina needed a little bit of warm up. Combo is super important on the Okina, and actually that gives me a really strong idea for my build moving forward. But yeah, moving forward. But not much. But I guess I want to save my conversation for the 4. I guess later when it's very important. But as it stands, the 4 is still pretty strong. It helps more when we need true crowd control, but when we're just kind of killing things for, you know, the sake of killing things, i.e. exterminate mission, it doesn't matter as much. It does help. Like if something doesn't die, it makes them die. It makes them die. That's what we need. basically just picks them up like marionette dolls and fucking just ragdolls them and says, hey, you get a status, you get a status, everybody gets a status. Like, you know, it's just the way it goes.
A rock? A coaster.
I'm not going to talk about it too much. We got the Kuva here. Kuva Lich. And what status are we going to get? I don't know, because the dialogue is preventing me from pressing X on my console. Let me have the thing. And it's gonna be.
Oh, it's cold.
Yes, it's gonna be the cold damage, which is interesting. I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, there's limited status typing on Kuvas anyway. Spoiler alert: if you get tenet weapons, you can sort of finish the set of available damage typings and not be so limited by Kuva. But we get cold, which is nice because we can make that work for Corpus if need be. So it's a weird system that they've got going on, and I love the depth that it actually adds to sort of the way that you build your arsenal. In just a second here, I'm going to remember that this is actually a rescue mission. So we're going to start running because there's a hostage for me to get. You might have actually seen my shield got broke, and I needed to press 3 very quickly, or I would have started taking a lot of damage. It's important to remember just how much healing we're actually getting from the 3. And especially now that we're in Grenier territory. Super important. Super important. See, I'm just dashing around with my operator form. It's generally faster if you have bigger open spaces, because when it's closed, tight spaces, then you actually do need sort of the stability of speed that Warframe movement gives you. And good that movement is. I really enjoy the movement in this game. I don't know, this is just commentary. Very fun. Comey doesn't really have any movement on her, so that's sort of a downside to this frame. We are very slow by default. Now, I actually have the sprint speed armor mod, so we're helping that a little bit, but half the time I'm just going to be doing parkour anyway. And something essential that is actually missing from Comey right now, at least for me, is an Exilus slot, which would help a lot in that regard, because then you can add movement speed and potentially with some other stats. For example, I would probably be putting, what is it called? It's something drift. It's the one that gives slide and friction and a little bit of range, actually. Would go a long way here. The way I have built Comey is extra duration, high efficiency, well, no, extra efficiency, and no range and some strength, which I think she doesn't need range, and it's because of the way her 1 works. So we can kind of go full circle here. This is the Comey video, I guess. I don't know. That's just how it works. Pressing 1 doesn't cost that much energy, so we only need a little bit of efficiency, and only because of how many times you really need to press 1 does the energy max matter and the efficiency matter. So I'm going to show the arcanes later, but I have arcane battery, and that gives energy max for armor points. And if you remember earlier, we were talking about the armor points being very high, and that's that helps a lot. So we've got a decent amount of energy. We've also got energy max on spawn, and that helps in these missions where I don't really feel like slaughtering enemies to get my energy drops in the first place. It just takes too long, and frankly a waste of time when I could just have more energy on spawn, and also energy regen, very important here. We've gotten far more on the utility side than sort of maxing out her stats, simply due to the way the kit works. I mean, now we've talked about pretty much every aspect of the kit, and surprisingly enough, adding to those stats, duration, range, efficiency, and strength, doesn't really do much for Kome. I mean, if you go too hard on the range, what happens is the 1 doesn't even work well. And it's due to the number of threads that you're allowed to have at one time. When you have low range, you don't throw that many threads. And so the trade-off is that you can throw the ability multiple times in multiple directions and have all those threads exist until you reach the cap, in which case you'll start replacing them, or they're going to fade away. So duration actually does matter for the 1. Duration matters almost the most, so that's why we have it spec'd up over anything else. But that means range doesn't really matter too much, because now when you go too far in the range, suddenly you have so much range on the 1 that you're placing more threads in a singular activation than the cap allows for, and it starts despawning the ones from the single ability press, and now you can't cast more than 1 without it completely disintegrating the last one, and so it becomes a very one and done kind of use, and sort of kills your ability to, I don't know, it ruins the synergy of like pressing the 1 a lot to get triple sixes, is I guess what I'm trying to say here. It kind of removes that as an aspect, but in the same case, you kind of want it to replace every single one so that they're all fully statused out. I don't know if that makes sense. You want every thread to be the white thread that does all status effects.
The auto breach.
And so you want them to all get replaced on the same 1 hit, but you don't want to, waste range and just have it go so far that it's replacing itself. It's a weird balance, and so I've just kept it at 100%. I think the standard range is perfect. In fact, I think it replaces every thread every time. No, that's not true, actually. I know for a fact with 100% range, you retain a few threads from the end of your previous cast. So at the tip of your range, you'll keep a few, and that's sort of the number of threads that we're working with, which is nice. Just having that little bit of agency in that sense. But then we definitely need some efficiency if we're going to be casting the 1 a whole bunch of times, and it also works for the 4 a lot, because the 4 has a high cost. It drops it from 100 to about 70, which is nice. Which is just a nice damage value to have, or sorry, energy cost to have. Straight up. So efficiency, always good. I cannot think of a reason why you wouldn't want efficiency on a build. Tanking the efficiency for something else, now that's a different story. There are reasons you might not need efficiency, or you can get away without having it. But in this case, we're going to be casting a lot of 1s, just due to the nature of the randomness. And yeah, I don't want to spend that much energy just on 1. I'd rather keep the energy efficiency for my 4s, because those are run saving. We're going to be experiencing that a lot in the next node. Now, for those of you who have been keeping up with the series, it's sort of a running trend that this particular node type has given me a lot of trouble, and but that's, well, without spoiling anything, that's kind of what's gonna happen again here. It's Interception, guys. I know we're in the middle of a spy mission, and I know that was close. Like, I could be talking about the spy mission right now, but besides that first vault, this really hasn't gone very poorly. I'd say spy is one of my stronger types. I can say Shade is very strong, and due to the patch that dropped Kome, we're actually getting pieces and parts of the Companion 2.0 rework, which includes Shade, which is nice. So Ghost is a little bit stronger here as an augment, and it kind of just makes spy missions like super easy. I missed that scanner, and I just saw it in post. I'm so glad I did. It's above me.
How?
It's above me. If you go back in the video, you will see that thing is just straight above the thing. And so now I know. Why don't I see this scanner? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Anyways, we're gonna move on to the last mission. I can really start to dive into our 4 here. But yeah, to finish the discussion about sort of our base stats, that would be why we want efficiency and don't really care about range. Duration is always going to be good in this build. I think duration is by far the strongest, simply due to the fact that the longer the uptime is, the less I have to cast to get the good rolls, right? On the 1, when we roll 3 6s, we'll be able to keep that roll for much longer and don't have to recast it so much. So that's very helpful. Also with the 4, it keeps them hanging for much longer, which is going to be very important in just a short time. For everything else, duration doesn't really do anything. We do have the roar replacement, which is important to note. I would like at least some strength for that and some duration for that as well. So there you go. Duration even stronger in that sense. But strength, otherwise, we don't care about too much. Mostly, I'm interested in the status typing over the actual damage of the status themselves. So wrapping full circle to our conversation earlier about status typing and the damage it does, yeah, we really don't care too much. So I'm not going to waste strength on that when it in the end, it will still only end up doing a small portion of the damage. We're really only interested in the actual debuffs that are being applied here and the synergy with other weapons that do enjoy that. Condition overload and whatnot. Interception, man. I don't know what to say about this game. I feel like a broken record when talking about this because it doesn't change, and in spite of it not changing, it continues to stump me. I don't know what it is, but this game type and I have not a strained relationship. I don't want to say that, but it's a toxic relationship, me in this game mode, bro. What's going on here? We've got 4 flags, okay, and we need to capture them. We can't capture them when enemies are standing on top of them, so we need to kill the enemies to capture the flags, right? Seems good. Watch what happens when I try and capture this center flag. I can't. They capture my flag. So instead, I try to go back to recapture my flag. And you know what I'm able to do? I'm actually able to capture it. And that's very, very much so because of the 4. The 4 has a very weird synergy here where when you press 4 and the enemies are still within the zone of the capture, they no longer apply to the conflict that would stop you from capturing it. And that's very, very important. This run actually was going very, very well. I didn't know what I know now, and you're going to see me drop the ball. I think it's this right here. I'm trying to capture D, and I'm going to fail. You see, it's just sitting at 50%. And it looks like there's no enemies here, but they're just barely creeping into the zone from the different layers. And so this is where my sort of conversation about the map kind of comes in. I kind of want to just let myself in the past talk about it. So when that starts happening, I'm just going to let that tried. But I look away from the capture, and suddenly I don't have any flags. I went from 3 flags to no flags in the span of about, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Don't know how that works. I have no clue how I lost all these flags. I mean, I do in hindsight. I'm just sort of speaking from present tense in the past. Well, from the future into the past. Time is weird. I think what happened was I got too focused on the Stalker clone, and I just lost all the towers. I had a lead. I still do have a lead. I just need to recapture some flags or it's going to be bad. But clearly I can't deal with the conflict on this flag, and I'm just like, what's going on? I can't capture this flag, and they keep rushing me, and I can't capture this flag. And this doesn't go away. Is kind of my problem. In the past, right? Earth and Venus, I've said this game was fucking hard, and due to the enemy density, it makes it very difficult to deal with because there's just so many, and if you don't have the nuke capability to actually, get rid of them fast enough, then this game mode is suddenly hard. And that's the one thing Kome really doesn't have. She's DPS, not necessarily a one-shot frame, and it's gonna cost me. You can see I'm struggling to get a capture off, and I'm failing to listen to my advice from in the past. So on those other planets, I was very careful to make sure I'm rotating my flags, make sure I'm capturing the thing that they're, walking away from, so that way I can get a free capture off and start, double capping, triple capping, quadruple capping until I just need to defend a flag. And on Venus, that actually worked very well. I sort of rotated my flags, and then I got to a stable position where I was able to just farm the enemies and keep them off the console, like one set of consoles, and win out. It took me 2 tries because I made a silly mistake in the beginning, and that was it. Here, I just never caught up. And, I mean, I guess you'll hear me talk about it in just a second, because we lost. It's over.
Fuck. Man, I had the cap too. I don't know what went wrong. Oh no, dude. I was doing so good again. This time I didn't even die. It's just I actually got capped. That one's hard because it's such a small map. At least that particular tile is brutally small. If the enemy density was already the thing that was screwing me, now they're dense and they don't take that long to even get to the next flag. Son of a bitch, man. So yeah, you heard me talking about it. It's the enemy density, which we've definitely talked before. Now, it's an issue of map size, of all things. And I did not see this coming. They really threw a fucking curveball at me with this one. This tile is so much smaller than the other 2 interception tiles than we've been given. Actually, I wouldn't know what the second Venus tile is, because we only did it twice and we got the same tile for both times, and then we just won. But the Earth tile had 2 different tiles. They both had, a decent amount of space for us to work with, and the problem is, can you kill the enemies fast enough to actually, out-capture the enemies? Here, oh my god, the distance between the flags is just so much smaller, and so you have the same number of enemies in a finer space, so that's insane.
We get even more density. I don't even know how that
From
works.
taking it.
Well, I know exactly how that works. This is exactly what I just explained. More enemies, less space, higher density. That's just the calculation for density, like literally. And when it comes to capturing this middle flag, like, oh my lord.
Where's the conflict? I don't see it.
I don't know what to say. It's just impossible, because here's the thing. We can defend the lower area, but then they can just stand up top, and I literally can't see them. If I go up top to defend the upper area, they just sneak in from one of the sides and capture it from down below. So that middle flag is
not going to try and cap the middle
and
one.
I realized this throughout the runs and on the way to victory.
but capturing that middle flag is sort of big. We just don't have the agency to deal with it. Yeah, at least with this setup, and this is where I'll start to talk about my current arsenal and how it deals with this sort of ineffectively. And the main issue is sort of just AoE. We have some AoE. It just doesn't deal nearly enough damage to actually rid the capture zone of enemies. Largely due to the fact that Komei's abilities aren't dealing any damage, and they will never deal enough damage to actually kill enemies. And I think the important thing to note is that, yes, we could kill all these enemies eventually. The problem is, again, efficiency. And so I need to be clicking on every single enemy to sort of finish them off with the Sobek. Big shout out to the Sobek for actually killing enemies. It just didn't. It's not doing it fast enough. I don't have fire rate on this thing. It's shooting too slow, and because I need to give one bullet to each enemy, my mag size just can't keep up. And dealing with this, I'm doing it
so
wrong
fucking impossible,
right
dude.
now. There actually is a solution, and that's sort of my spoiler for
Saw
you.
the nuke setup. I can't
For
do
the rest
anything
of
about
this
it.
this is very possible. It's very possible. I mean, I've done it, right? Like, you're seeing this video. I cleared this node and went on to the assassination to finish it off. So what's the solution here? It turns out it's the 4. And that's why I wanted to save this discussion. I already said it. It's the fact that the enemies who are lifted do not contribute to the capture. And I sort of internalize this while I'm playing. What I failed to do was apply it in a way that is a winning strategy. And this is my error, is I just didn't realize that was the only way I was actually going to finish this. I've sort of cruising through this the way I did the last few, which was, you know, sit on the point that I'm trying to capture,
Oh, here we go again.
kill a bunch of enemies until they're all
Alright.
gone, and then
Oh, fuck me, dude. Alright. I have
capture
a
the
new
flag and move
strategy.
on.
I have a new strategy.
That wasn't
Have
working
to start with
just
the one
due to
in the
the
middle.
amount of locations that they could come from, and when I turn my back to face the
I don't know how to
one
deal
way,
with this.
they start walking up behind me,
'Cause
and then they
not
don't
a
even
nuke
shoot me, so I
frame,
don't even know
can't
they're
just
there,
delete them.
and they just sit there.
The
And
closest
they
I have
go,
is
this idiot doesn't even know I'm causing the conflict right now. And so by the time I finish
4,
killing the
but
other
I really
enemies,
just
5 of his buddies have rolled up,
I
and
don't-
there's a whole
I need to
there's a
use
whole
the
other
4 a
mob
lot.
up behind me.
Kinda
And
I'm
it's-
thinking,
y-
'cause-
you see what's happening on the screen. I don't really need to talk about that.
It
too
gives
much.
me.
The one
It
thing I
lets
could
me
talk about
cap
now
even
is
if they're alive.
stacking up the
And then
latum
just leave them
beforehand.
alive, like-
Absolutely necessary, I think. I
Maybe
don't.
just sitting here for a
I mean,
while.
it would probably charge pretty quickly otherwise, but just
Might
having
as well
that
just let them cook.
off
I wanna
of
go
the
for this
rip
one first.
is important. So I've wisened up here.
Neutralize them all
You heard
first.
me talking about it probably behind the post commentary.
We'll give it cap.
Except I didn't really wisen up, and I've totally forgotten that neutralizing the flags doesn't do shit. It doesn't do shit. Which I really wish it did, man. That would make doing this solo like so much easier. But it don't work.
I need this
And,
one. I need this one. I need this one.
I did not wisen up, actually. I fucking didn't wisen up. The key here is just not to work with the middle. Not to work with the middle flag. It's just too difficult. Just too many areas for them to come from. And solo, I just don't have that wave clear. At least with this setup. And me being here is just
it's
wasting
literally
time.
not possible to cap this.
And I don't
with this
realize that.
shit.
And what ends up happening is I end up losing again. So instead of making you sit through another failed attempt at this, I'm just going to skip ahead to the winning attempt.
I'm gonna need another run. It's already.
By this point, I realized the only way I'm going to get through
I have
this
to- I
is
have
the
to
4.
start with the center. There's no way
And-
around it. Like, okay.
That's
Dude,
just it.
This is like the most tactical shit I've ever fucking seen. Like, This is as tactical as Warframe gets. Solo interception when you're slightly underpowered. If I was overpowered, this would be fine. Like, I could totally do this, but because I'm not one-shotting everything right now, which, to be honest, I don't know why I'm not one-shotting everything right now, but probably just Sobek build is not so good. Actually, yeah, I know it's exactly because of that. Sobek build is kind of ass.
Hopefully I've realized at this point that the 4 is the way to go. I think internally, I don't know if I said it out loud in pre-commentary, but live commentary. But it is going to be the defining factor here. I need to lift them, but instead of just murdering them, I need to just let them sit there. So we're going to do everything that we've learned so far. We're going to cap this objective first because it's simply impossible to do mid-round. So we're going to get this one first, and then we're going to try and defend this one for as long as we can just to hold it. But I need to capture other objectives, right? That's sort of a prerequisite for actually winning. They're capping D. I just don't care. I just don't care. I need something else because that's just going to disappear. I did try to save it and failed, and I was like, oh, maybe I should finish my cap. I thought it might have been worth a try, but they were just too quick.
All right, so I think the idea is that
yes, I have realized it now. Letting them sit there is the strategy that I was missing. That was gonna cause us to win. What I didn't internalize about the fact that pressing 4 makes the enemies not count towards conflict is that when they're sitting here,
captured under their noses,
they're not respawning somewhere else, and it means that I get a lot more pressure being able to just contain them on a flag that I'm capturing and force them to recapture it when they're done, and they can't do anything else. Like, that's taking up so many of the enemies that I'm able to actually get stuff done here. And so just doing that once on flag D, first of all, I was able to capture flag D just on passing through. Second of all, they stayed there, and I was able to capture C for free. So we got 2 flags ahead. Now we're sort of full capping them, and we're winning. And it was just one piece of the strategy that I was missing, and suddenly it all comes together, right? That's all I needed, was just this strategy right here, and it was goated. Now, I do notice that we're actually missing C, but instead of trying to recapture a flag right away, I'm just going to focus where all of the enemies are and defend this flag for as long as I can. If I start losing more flags, I probably will just leave D behind, since this is the one that I don't really care about as much. But while I'm just killing enemies, I think it might as well be here, because I can defend the consoles. If I have this flag, it's actually not so hard to hold, because they have to go to 2 pretty easy to access points.
I know
issue
when the
here
game
being
is
I can't actually kill them fast enough, apparently. And an Eximus will just walk up and cap me. And so I sort of get lost in the sauce here.
If I lost
and realize, ooh, I'm actually losing a bunch of flags again. And so after spending so much time on that flag, yeah, you can see now they're actually recapping me pretty hard. And this is starting to spiral out of my control again. So let's just go back to doing our laps. Something important, though, is that I did waste a bunch of their time capturing D. And so while they were trying to do that, I got my score high enough into a comfortable enough position where, you know, that's fine. I can just sit there and farm a little bit. That's what this mission is nice for, is if you can kill all the enemies. It's got a lot of them. And so this tends to be one of the best missions for farming. If you find a fissure on it, it's one of the best, especially with a squad where you can have one person on each flag. It makes this far, far easier, because it just splits the density up. And life is good. Life is good. Although I am starting to slip here, so I need to not focus on the killing, and I really need to dial in this strategy. But yeah, that's it. That was the solution to this mission, is just press 4 and let them sit there. Let them sit there. And I'm still not doing it as much as I really should be. I think part of it is I just realize I'm trying to juggle holding flags versus capturing flags, because as long as I'm ahead and I have 2 flags, all I need to do is hold, and then I will win. That's part of the strategy of just this game mode in general. That's more of a basic foundational thing to when it comes to score-based capped game modes like this in general. I mean, not even just this game. Like, think domination in Call of Duty, right? You only need 2 of the 3 flags before you're winning, and then you don't need to do more. And I think just not being greedy here, not being overzealous, and not wasting time trying to capture D flag is going to be the difference maker here. And just focusing on flag retention at this point, it's a lot easier to kill 1 or 2 enemies off of a console than it is to kill an entire group of enemies off of a flag. And since they're not really killing me outright, then this definitely is the winning strategy here. Now, at this point, it's just about over, and I'm actually managing to, you know, hold a decent bit of flags, and it is not easy by any means.
Oh my god. I think I got it. Holy shit, dude. I don't even underestimate these missions. I don't even underestimate these missions is the worst part. Like, I go into these knowing full well it's gonna be absolute hell and I need to try my hardest. And you know what happens? I still just get absolutely fucking reamed. They still keep throwing curveballs at me. Like, I thought I knew what was going on after suffering through Earth, and then Venus. You know, we may have died a little early, but then we got it on lock. Here they sprung the close range towers on me, and I did not know what to do for that whatsoever. So, all right, well, we're moving on. Fucking Jesus. Yeah, try my hardest and succeed eventually is sort of the ideology that I think I was going for there. We're moving on. Interception, man, it's one hell of a game mode. Like, it genuinely surprises me how much trouble that gives me, like, actually. But yeah, we're wrapping this up. I don't want to just keep talking in circles. Sort of exhausted everything I needed to talk about. Yeah, just an interception. Sorry, assassination is what we're doing now. Captain Vor. I mean, they could probably be doing something with Captain Vor. No, another version of Captain Vor. I mean, we all know pretty lively.
Captain Vor isn't really dead, apparently. He kind of just is the void. The void. We can't kill Captain Void. He doesn't die ever. All we can do is smite him back to the void. Should be another confrontation, in my opinion.
Still ain't
Just
shit.
more void.
Still ain't shit.
Sorry. Vor confrontations. That could be interesting, actually. I could see that. Have a bunch of void missions on Mercury, and then they only unlock after you reach the void and kill Vor, and that could be its whole quest. You know, tell me more about Vor. Like, Vor is the dude that everybody when you first start the game, right? You should be worried about Vor. He's the main quest line. That's the
what I'm
reason we
made
come out
for.
here. This is the reason we
what I
just
made
did
him
this whole
for.
steel path bullshit. Is to kill this guy and then leave. Like that is the quest,
Right?
Captain Vor. And
Although,
then you kill him. And it's like, okay, just go to go to Mars. I'm not trying to shit on this game. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that Mercury could probably use some more.
nice. Let's go.
Some more agency, I think is the word. But, yeah, that's gonna do it from post Roca. I'm gonna hand it over to live Roca because the video's wrapping up. I'll see you next time, guys. Thank you. We get Steel Path Mercury. Let's go. Let's go. All right, so here's the build for what we just did on Mercury. We've got Kome, a couple shards on her, the energy, status chance, and duration. Not strength, actually. Not strength. For mods, we got Steel Charge, Continuity, Fiber, Intensify, Nexus, Agility, Vitality, Adaptation, sorry, and Streamline. We got Arcane Battery and Arcane Rise. This was some questionable arcanes, but I think this ended up working out because we did use the Sobek a bit. Speaking of the Sobek, some slightly suboptimal build. We've got Point Blank, Galvanized Hell, Galvanized Savvy, Spread and Charge Shell, and then Acid Shells, which I think sort of wasn't doing as much as I was hoping it would do. Clipped Delegation, which is actually was probably doing more than I expected it to, and then Primed Ravage, which is eh. So these three mods, I think it was really these two mods that are really just not too good. And of course Narrow Barrel, just for some extra accuracy. Nothing crazy there. Actually, this is really good. I like this mod a lot. The Arcane also didn't really come in too clutch because Dexterity is a little difficult to use, especially when like our damage typing is a little mixed here. So I in the future I would go for either Deadhead or Merciless, but yeah. So that's the Sobek build. The Latum, we got Hornet Strike, Diffusion, Galvanized Shot, Convulsion, Heated Charged, Accelerated Isotope, Jolt, and Scorch with a suppressor on it, and then secondary Merciless. Very nice, very nice. This was pretty good. I mean, obviously the Incarnon is very important for this one. We've already seen this before. I really haven't changed this build too much. Recoil, I think I changed. Yeah, this is status chance instead of headshot damage now, which in the end it's just gonna make this proc more and give me status damage. So theoretically I should probably be putting corrosive damage on this too. It would help a lot, honestly, but alas, I digress. And we have the Okina Prime, something new to my arsenal actually, but something that I really, really enjoy. We've also got the new Galvanized mod, so the Spinning Needle Stance, Condition Overload, Pressure Point, Galvanized Steel, Organ Shatter, Harness Mandible, Northwind, Galvanized Elementalist, and Vicious Frost. This build probably needs some work. I think I need to really understand how the Incarnon damage is dealing cold damage, because it gives those flying daggers, right? The spectral daggers that do cold damage stats. I don't know if that's affected by our cold damage on the weapon, but if it is, then yeah, I think I've built it pretty well. But otherwise, I would just put another stat on it, since it's just going to do cold anyway. I mean, there's probably merit to doing that anyway, but yeah, we have some status damage, which is good for slash. And do I not have... Oh yeah, I didn't have that. Well, we have movement speed and the base crit and status chance up. I want both on this thing. But, yeah, this time we actually ran the Unairu tree. I probably shouldn't have done that since it's not even maxed out. I don't even have the waybounds, but I do have some of the other waybounds, and that helps quite a bit when it comes to this. So a little bit of a throw there, but it is what it is. Pairs on mods, nothing crazy. Didn't even use the mercy killing companion if you want to see it. Shade carrying as always, and the burst laser, which literally just never shows up. Gear that we didn't use, and we didn't. Oh, there's actually no archwing level on this. I just realized. So yeah, I didn't even use that. So that's the build. There's no dark sector mission on this one, so I guess I'll just see you all the next one. If you want to subscribe and keep up with the series, I would really appreciate that. Make sure you drop a like and let me know that you're enjoying the series, or don't. Drop a dislike and tell me what I can change. The comment section is always open. I'm glad to hear feedback. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this episode of Solo Steel Path. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Bye bye.